Bizarre Reality Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones. What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of conversational exploration into the fringes of social norms. I'm the one they call Shane, and today for you guys, I have Valentine Lovecraft Falcon, a woman who is so authentically herself, only her name can sum her up. Here today to share a bit of a different perspective on the psychedelic topic in connection with Christianity. Rather than pushing her away from Christ, they have brought her into his loving embrace. But before we get into that, just a couple of quick news and updates. First and foremost, I am trying to put together a Halloween special for this show / Bizarre Encounters, and what I'm going to need for that is for you guys to call in and share some of your experiences that you guys might want to share on the show. Anything paranormal, cryptid related, extraterrestrial, it doesn't matter. We'd absolutely love to hear from you guys. I wanted to put together a listener Halloween special where it's a bunch of your guys' call-ins, and it's Orin and I kind of discussing what we might possibly think that they might be, and of course throwing in some Halloween stories along the way. So hopefully I can at least get 10 of you guys to call in, leave those stories on the Bizarre Reality Hotline, and of course I will contact you and make sure it's okay that we use your recording. And if anybody wants their voice changed, anything like that, we can of course leave that stuff out too. You guys just have to let me know what exactly you want to do with it. But of course, like I said, I will contact you guys before we end up using it for the show. But if you might be interested in doing that, you guys can call the hotline, which is 313-364-1551. And you guys can call or text that 24/7. Even some text encounters, of course, if you guys don't want to call in, I can use some of those, of course, for the show too. But leading into the next point, it's going to be a Halloween special for Bizarre Inquiries. So if anybody is interested in catching that, that's going to be happening on October 2nd. Live on the Bizarre Reality Media YouTube and Twitch channels, of course. And if anybody has any questions, clips, or articles that they would like to submit for that, make sure you guys get it to us before then. But if not, we will, of course, pass them along to the next show. And continuing on, I am still doing the t-shirt / survey thing. All you guys have to do to get entered to win any t-shirt of your choice off of the Bizarre Reality merch store is go and answer a quick 8-question survey. All your guys' thoughts and opinions on the show. I just want to help the show grow and improve this year. So if you guys wouldn't mind taking a few minutes to give some authentic answers for that, I would definitely appreciate it. And all else fails, you might end up getting a free t-shirt out of it, but I'm waiting till that hits about 50. Currently it's at 16, so hopefully we can get those numbers up because I'd like to kind of wrap that up hopefully before the end of the year. But if you guys don't mind taking about a minute or two to do that, I would definitely appreciate it. And if anybody is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, or contacting me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can email me at inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or you guys can always call into the Bizarre Reality Hotline, and that number again is 313-364-1551. And if you happen to miss that, again, it is available down in the show notes. And if you guys might be interested in supporting the show, there are a handful of ways that you guys can do so. First and foremost, you guys can go and check out the Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free / early access and full access. And we've had a little bit of a stock up of the 0.5 episodes over there. And those aren't short episodes, they are full-length episodes. So if you guys are interested in checking those out, you guys can get those exclusively over there on the Patreon. And you won't just get this show, but you'll also get Bizarre Encounters, so a little bit more bang for your buck. And you guys can also go and check out the Bizarre Reality merch store with t-shirts starting at just $15.68 plus shipping. So not too bad considering that most shirts are about $20 now. Even when I went to JCPenney the other day, their shirts are about $18. So honestly, not too bad. And you guys can support the little guy in the process of it. And if you guys might be interested in donating to the show directly to give me some energy drinks to be able to stay up and edit these shows for you guys at night, I definitely appreciate it. And you guys can check out different ways to do that down in the show description. And last but not least, you guys can always go and check out the affiliate links with some additional discounts and credits available for you guys. And I know times are tough out there, but if you're still interested in supporting the show in other ways, you guys could definitely go and leave a review for the show on iTunes or Spotify or whatever podcatcher you happen to use. And of course, I will read on the show and give you guys a big shout out. You guys can also go and follow the show on Instagram and Facebook. You guys could always share the show word of mouth with friends, or if you think anybody might enjoy the show as a whole or any particular episodes. And you guys can always go and catch live shows on the Bizarre Reality Media YouTube and Twitch channels. And last but not least, you guys can always go and check out my other show, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin, talking about a lot of the same stuff as this show, but doing it from a different perspective because we deep dive and we end up having conversations about it. And of course, making some jokes along the way. And every single thing I mentioned is all available down in the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show, Valentine Lovecraft Falcon. How's it going today?
It's going so good.
I didn't quite know how to introduce you into the show because originally this conversation somewhat started through an email that you sent to me after listening to one of my Nathan Reynolds episodes from a while back. I'm not sure which one because we had 3 of them, but like I said, I didn't know exactly how to introduce you because, like you mentioned, you don't necessarily have a title or anything specific you do, but you kind of have a lot of different things that you look into and research.
It's true. It is true. Well, and recently a friend of mine who is also a mentor said, I was like, what am I? And she said, you're your name. So that is the title.
Hey, that's probably a good thing, though, because then you don't get caught up on the whole aspect of titles. So, I mean, that's never a bad thing. Just to be yourself, simply.
Exactly.
So I guess a good spot to start for anybody that may not be familiar with who you are, what you exactly research into. Why don't you kind of lay the framework a little bit for who you are and what exactly you do?
Well, I guess I do a lot of different things. So and we'll talk about it, but one of the things I had reached out to you about is because I have worked with plant medicines and mushrooms, specifically ayahuasca and psilocybin. So I actually do work in that field as an assistant, or I guess you would call it that field. I work in that space as I assist those gatherings. We do call them ceremonies. So I assist for them. My husband and I run a business called Born Free Natural Mystic. We are foragers. Like just before I got on this call, we were out in the woods foraging. We got chanterelles and different mushrooms. I make things. We're both artists. We make music. So it kind of spans the gamut out here. I also do readings. So I don't call them psychic readings because they're not. It's kind of my own style. And I call them oracle medicine sessions. And so I do that. I mentor. And I definitely would say that I research, although I haven't really thought of myself that way. But yeah, I do. I deep dive. I would say I'm extremely compelled by the imagination. And so maybe for the last over a decade, I've been studying the mind, imagination, beliefs. I would get out of even using the language of manifestation because I feel that there's a lot of maybe dogma is a word around it at this point. There's also kind of like materialism. And I think that imagination and the imaginal realms, which is what I read when I do readings for people, I think it's one of our most incredible gifts that we have and as human beings. And I won't go too into it, but you do a lot of interviews and I know you're super tapped into. We're in a world where the human being is getting slowly infiltrated and compromised. And I think that our ability to create and work with imagination and the realms that imagination connects to are a, if you believe in God, which I do, is one of our main gifts from God. And it's under attack. And, gosh, I mean, there's so many ways I could go with all this, but I'll just say that part of my getting closer to God in a particular way, which I can just talk about more later, through Yeshua, is that the plants and the mushrooms and just nature in general I've only witnessed them trying to help us come together to repel, protect, awaken, and illuminate our humanity through our creatorship. so that is something I'm very interested in.
So I'm glad that you brought that part up at the end, because a lot of the time, you hear about all of these different connections with plant medicine, and most people go to like the New Age philosophy behind this type of stuff. But I appreciate the fact that you kind of go into it from a more godly perspective, because, a lot of people like to pass over in the Old Testament, for example. There's a lot of mystics in the Old Testament, but, we kind of lose touch with that over the years, and we forget the fact that, there are things that may have been here that God naturally gave to us regardless. It's the modification of things is when you start getting into the weird parameters of things. But just to bring up just kind of a prime example, you hear about the story with Moses and the burning bush, and you start kind of looking into some of the bushes that may have existed in that region, and then you kind of wonder about the interpretation as far as, was it a literal bush that was on fire and speaking to him as God, or was it possibly he had some type of psychedelic experience with this thing that made it so he was able to connect with God? So again, it would be a thing that was intentional in the Bible, and again, using these things with intention too, because I'm sure that just like a lot of these things, when you make these connections into these other places, it's partially intention on what you think you're going to talk to on the other side, because it's almost like opening a call where you don't know who's going to answer on the other end. So if you're true in heart, of course, you're going to speak with something that's true at heart at the other side. But, if you have some possible malicious tendencies, then maybe you might interact with something that, may not necessarily be on the good realm of things. But, it's kind of a hard thing to necessarily fully interpret, because when it comes to some of these psychedelic experiences, people talk about malevolent and benevolent beings, but in the broader aspect of things, a bad trip isn't necessarily ever a bad trip because it teaches you some other life message. So it's always a really hard interpretation when it comes to these plant medicines, because, you look at the step-by-step obviousness of, it's something that was naturally here that connects with something, and you can look at it from that. Or on the other perspective, you might be able to look at it as maybe you're interacting with something that, maybe was trying to trick you into experiencing this other realm. But I feel like that was initially why you ended up contacting me in the first place, is because we started talking about the aspect of the psychedelic realm with possibly the Nephilim. But I guess, again, it might be completely up for interpretation and what you might be manifesting from the other side, depending on your experience.
Okay, so for 1 second, you cut out, so I might have missed something there. I'm sorry.
Hopefully I didn't touch the microphone. It didn't cut on the recording all the way. So just to throw it out there for the listeners out there, if there are little cutouts in my audio, I am running on a really bad microphone cord and I do need to replace it. So I apologize. I'm trying my best to not touch the microphone, but if I touch the microphone, it does cut off for a second.
So let me just back up. So okay, there's the intention, there's going into realms and portals where you can have a bad trip, and is it actually a bad trip? Who are you meeting in those dimensions? You brought up the Nephilim, and I can't remember what it was just in relation to, because it just cut out and then cut back in.
I was throwing in the aspect that I think I've talked about on a few previous shows, that, there's been a few other researchers that have thrown the idea that maybe what you talk to on the other side of the psychedelic realm might be the Nephilim or the fallen angels, and that's why they present themselves as these, prism, very beautiful looking beings, because of course you'd have to trick people into thinking that you were something, malevolent. But I mean, not to go off on a spin, but yeah, that was all I was throwing at it. If that cut out.
I'm down with talking about the Nephilim. I am all on all those things. So any of that can come into this conversation. All your stuff that you talk about, I'm down with it. I am with you. And that's how I found you, right? Because I have been sort of following Nathan Reynolds, and you interviewed him, and I thought those interviews were amazing.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show.
So the reason why I reached out to you, okay, I didn't even know what the whole new age thing was, for one thing. Like, I grew up, my first job basically was working at a metaphysical bookstore. I sort of grew up in that world, you know. I wanted to be a psychic from a really young age. I had very spiritual experiences that were always very benevolent. I mean, I had scary ones too that were not, but I was kind of into all that stuff. So I grew up in all of these things. I never was a part of a church. I never grew up with any of that. The Bible, Jesus, none of that stuff was part of my world. If anything, I would say I was pretty repelled by it. But I did get into a spiritual practice at one point and was very invested in it for like 13 years, and it changed my life. I meditated. There was like a belief system. It was very profound and pretty austere as well, I might add. So the reason why I reached out to you, and you're not the only one, because how do I say this? So I got into the plant medicine just because I'm an explorative person, but I also had a lot of problems, and I realized that I needed help. One of those problems was alcohol, you know.
You and me both on that one, because that one definitely helped me out getting into psychedelics after being an alcoholic. So I can definitely speak from that point too.
Yeah. So alcohol, I had trauma from sexual abuse as a child, you know, just different, like a whole slew of things, right? I had a whole slew of things. And then you hear about ayahuasca, and I had access to it. And I thought, why wouldn't I go? Like, something to possibly help me, you know, like, I need help and I don't want to go to AA and just repeat over and over, I'm an alcoholic. Like, I wanted to understand why, you know? So, and as somebody that's always been on a spiritual path, that's actually the thing that's always pulled me and has been a thread through my whole life. This idea that there's something that is still relative to spirituality, could heal, could give you insight as to why you have these problems or why you drink or whatever it may be. And so, you know, I did one in 2014. It was cool. It didn't change my life. I wasn't healed. And then I would say, I think it was in 2017, that's where I really began to work with specifically that plant. Now, I was somebody that did tarot and astrology and healers and just like hypnotherapy, like throw the kitchen sink at it, man. Like, I wanted help. I wanted assistance. I was open to everything. I didn't know it was called the New Age religion. I didn't know anything about that. That was just in my field. I felt very explorative. I was open and interested. And that basically didn't change through my time with plant medicine. You know, I did many sits or many ceremonies. It was never a silver bullet. I wouldn't say that I had, I don't want to go. So I'm just going to set that aside. So I definitely was one of these people that was like into all of it. And then my friend, one of my best friends actually, during 2020, when all this stuff was happening, I'd also always been into conspiracy stuff, conspiracy theories, Art Bell, William Cooper, like all those. I was down with all that. And then I just remember being like, well, what does it serve me to know this stuff? I can't, I'm not going to set up like a bunker like in Portland. I got a boyfriend. Nobody else is interested in this. I'm just like, this is all real. And it didn't seem like it mattered. So I sort of let it go, so I let all that stuff go. I moved to be with my now husband. I'm starting to feel free again. I'm starting to do things to get well and work with, heal and all this kind of stuff. And then the, COVID thing happens, right? And then all the conspiracy, then, I get these downloads about what's happening. And then I'm back in the whole world that now we're in, the world of, it's not conspiracy, it's truth, but that's what they call it. And so now I'm back in this world and, everything is starting to be revealed and it's deeper and it's more nefarious and it's crazier than I ever thought in my entire life. Terrifying, disgusting. And I had been in a mystery school. That's how my gifts came online. And during that, my best friend, who was sharing a lot of the information around COVID stuff, because I wasn't seeking it out anymore. I was finally taking a break from it. Then I was coming back. She's sharing a bunch of stuff. And she did grow up in the church, but that was never a part of her world. Then she has this dream that basically changes her life. I would say she was visited by Yeshua, and it was a spiritual, life-changing dream. It was real. And she started to push back on things I was sharing about my, whatever you want to call it, the new age world that I was in. It's like, I was just like, maybe this is true, maybe this, and, all these portals are opening and people are doing light language and people are doing readings and I'm doing readings. And it's like, what, and one of the things she said to me was, what's the source? Do you know the source of these things that are channeling and coming through? And I had never asked that question before. I had never asked that question. Nobody had asked me that question. I had never asked that question. And that's kind of where the needle on the record scratched. And I started and also something had happened in all of my explorations and opening and portal explorations that made me feel like that was a really important question for me to ask. So I started to close. I didn't do my tarot. I let all that stuff go. I don't demonize it. I have a lot of friends who work in that world and I think they're amazing at what they do. I don't see it because, again, I didn't grow up Christian, right? So I never had this idea that these were like demonic or, witchcraft. And a lot of that stuff has to get put through different filters. I mean, just because somebody is called a witch, like, it's actually somebody that works with nature, but there's a lot of degrees, right? So that's the problem. It's a language. There's a lot of language confusion. There's a lot of people compartmentalizing, not knowing, specifically in this kind of Christian world that I started to get into via my friend, because she started to share stuff that I felt was specifically through this one channel, this woman, Extreme Reality Check. It was like Extreme Reality Check, all this other stuff, David Icke. I got super into David Icke. Like, I mean, and everybody's kind of saying the same stuff,
That's That's the weird part about the research is when you start realizing that all of it seems to be different perspectives of the same events. Then you start really connecting things and putting stuff together. But it takes a while to get to that point. Once you start kind of researching into all these different beliefs and religions and everything, you realize that there's a lot more common ties than a lot of people think.
There is common ties. And that is what I started to realize. And also, I don't know what you call them, Shayn. I call a lot of these people like rogue Christians because they've sort of like came from the church, then denounced the religiosity, the spirit of religion. They're getting into super fringe stuff, but it's also super on point. Like, I resonate with it so deeply. And I think after, so basically in 2023 till now, I asked ayahuasca actually to help clean off my pineal gland so I could see. In doing that, I saw, I mean, it was, you take it all in. It's like, I listened to all David Icke's most recent books. I did all the extreme reality check. You start getting into all these channels. Yours is one of them. It's like all this information's coming out. And the plants and the plant medicines and the mushrooms have got me to a certain juncture. But the thing that actually, I privately did this. Well, it's not private anymore, but I privately thought, I don't think I'm strong enough to be able to discern the deceit that is coming. I don't have that level of strength. There is humans that have deceived me, and they're humans, and they're not even that smart. So it really became clear to me that the level of deceit coming in is beyond something I can personally prepare myself for. And so I privately did a Jesus prayer. I was like, I mean, people say it works. Like, I'm going to ask to be saved. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to do it because why not? What do I have to lose, And nothing happened initially. And I would say it's been a very interesting walk. And again, it's been very interesting because I would say that this being, Yeshua, and I are having a relationship, and there's a lot of amazing things happening. It's very slow. It's not bombastic. I don't ever think I would maybe call myself like a Christian per se, but there is a lot of information that's coming in that has made me feel very resonant with these teachers and these rogue Christians, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what they are, but I think a lot of what they're saying is spot on.
I think it's a rebranding. Just to throw in here for a second.
No, please.
Because I've kind of been on this path myself for a while now. That it's like I started off the show originally like I was raised Catholic, kind of denounced everything just because I thought I like saw past the facade and everything. But then through doing the show, all the different people I've talked to, all these different connections, like you were saying, it's pushed me back down this path where I'm kind of rediscovering a lot of this stuff. So I'm on this same path where I wouldn't necessarily like specify myself as a Christian, but the philosophy, everything else behind it is kind of starting to push in that direction for me. So it's kind of funny that this conversation is falling when it does, is because I've been really, really heavy diving back into this stuff, been praying myself again and everything. So it's really strange how a lot of the people who kind of get pushed into, quote, the new age perspective of things, you end up coming back to this. And it's weird because it's not, I won't even say like rogue Christians by any means. It's almost like a reteaching or a rebranding of things, because a lot of the people that are part of this like rogue Christian movement, so to speak, are the people that are trying to decipher the text from the original perspective without as much human intervention. So it's kind of like they're trying to get rid of the hierarchy that's within the church, because that was my whole thing. And I noticed that relatively recently, is that the reason I got pushed away from Catholicism is because of the hierarchy of humans before you actually get to being able to talk to, God or Jesus or anything like that. Where the rebranding of Christianity, it's like you take that hierarchy out and you realize that this covenant is between, the Lord and with God himself. It's not between this hierarchy of humans. So I feel like a lot of people, just because of the whole Catholic perspective on things, kind of got pushed away, and a lot of them are coming back into, again, not necessarily calling themselves Christian, but pushing back into this righteous path, so to speak.
Well, I love that. I love the righteous path.
It's a good way of looking at it. Because, even simply behind people that not even follow the God component of it, I feel like it's probably one of the most true philosophies that have ever been created as far as being a humble and good person. Like, I don't think that there's anything else that's comparable, even, like I said, beyond the religion and just looking at the philosophy, that teaches such a moral standing of how to be a good person. Like, inevitably, if you want to be a good person, you're going to fall back into this path eventually.
Yeah. Well, and this is what's so interesting. Okay. So the rebranding. So I'm starting to go deeper into these teachers, and they happen to be followers of Jesus, and they study the Bible. And some of them are definitely Christians. And some of them, this extreme reality check lady, she is a modern day. Why is my brain going blank? She is channeling, and it's incredible.
Like a modern day prophet? Would that be like a
prophet?
Because
she's a prophet. She's a prophet, but she doesn't call herself that or anything like that. But
that's a good sign, though, in my opinion.
Yeah,
if you don't call yourself a prophet, that just brings some more validity to the aspect that you may be speaking for God.
She's just like a mom trying to do her part on behalf of what's coming to her. And she's not just a mom. She's really intelligent and, all the things. But she is one of those people. She is definitely bringing things in, and it is like so deep, so spot on, so incredible, so intricate. And basically, because I'm listening to these guys, including Nathan Reynolds, they all bring up psychedelics, right? They always bring it up, and they immediately discount it. That's part of, oh, well, you just have to have a good shaman, or that's just, you don't have agency there. You don't have legal authority in those realms. That's just kind of like the fake way to get there. Like, there's a lot of presumptions and instantaneous writing it off as if it's just the wrong way to go. For one thing, I think it's really interesting because all these people say when you become a believer, you basically have the mind of Christ, which I think is very cool. By the way, I think that's a very cool thing because we are supposedly made in the likeness of the Creator. So if this guy, homeboy, Yeshua, is a creator, and we're made in the likeness, and then we get to have that state of consciousness, why don't you have authority in the realms?
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show. Just to throw in just a little component too, I was looking it up to see if the Bible makes any reference to using plant medicines, and apparently it says something along the lines of plants are depicted as created entities that grow according to God's design and are used as metaphors for spiritual growth. Bible narratives emphasize God as the ultimate cause of growth and use plants to illuminate human resilience to Him. So it is making reference that God does use plants.
Well, I love that, and I need to know where that came from, that quote. This is my experience, Shayn. Okay, so I started to question, right? I'm like, okay, Jesus, I'm hanging out with you. I'm doing your thing right now. Like, should I not do plant medicines? Like, like, I am willing to, I run experiments. So if this experiment means I have to exclude this, okay, like I will do it, because I want to be exclusively in this one experiment with you and see what happens. Because I've never done that before. I have not gotten that message. And for one, I've never seen these beings, even that you represented, or that you presented. I've never seen angelic beings. I've never had these bliss ayahuasca experiences. I don't have entities come to me. People do. I definitely have had. I've had some, like I was able to meet my husband's father. That was very benevolent and beautiful. It was not creepy, gross, or weird. I have not had these things that people, again, these rebranded Christians, I have never, I've been doing this for over 8 years now, very consistently. I have never seen, and I assist, so I work with people. I have never seen people coming out. Like, yes, some people feel like they've seen the truth, but even that can kind of wear off. That happens when they watch the news. That happens when they go to doctors. That happens when they read books. Like, these things that people sort of admonish plant medicine about, that's happening in everyday life. And it's not bringing them to love. It's not bringing them to look at the things that is inhibiting their well-being. It's not bringing them to realize that they are their own agents, that they have sovereignty, that they may be living a lie. Like, there is so many things that in the world people do. Okay, I'm losing my train of thought here. My point is that my experience with myself and my life is that the plants have brought me closer to God, actually, taught me how to read the Bible. And then later, in some of these different teachers, they said the very same thing that the plant told me. They were like, if you're interested, Valentine, we will help you learn. And the way you learn is not by reading. You learn on a mystical level. You learn by actually talking to the Holy Spirit and reading, and then there will be like it lifts up and teaches you on a spiritual dimension. The book will teach you on these different levels because it's supposedly a spiritual book, right? So the plants, the way that people, the Christian world, talk about psychedelics and plants, it's really hard for me. I don't like to be defensive, but that's why I asked if you were interested in having a different conversation, because I just feel that it's wrong. In fact, I'm writing about it in another response to something else I watched, and ayahuasca does not just give you bliss. It doesn't take you to heavenly realms. It can. It's not a one and done. It's not like you go in, you get a drug, and then you come out. It's not like DMT either, where you go in and you see these weird elves and praying mantis working on you. It's not black and white like that. It's not a one and done. It's just not. It is not something you can make a blanket statement about and be correct. And the truth is, as I've been thinking about this more, because again, there was something else that I'm writing in response to. What I see come out of it in myself and over the years is the righteous path. You use that word, and that is my experience. I see people realize they need to get off alcohol, that they've hated themselves, They've been mean to people. They need to change the way that they relate to family, their jobs, the earth. I mean, what's interesting is what I observe, if we're talking about the fruits, right? You know, because I started to get worried. I'm like, what am I in? You know, what am I working with? Like, is this safe? Is this sketchy? Am I working with something satanic? Is this the roots and the leaves, you know, like the Nephilim? Like, is it, you know, some kind of weird fallen angel technology? And in my own life, that's just not true. I mean, the level of becoming, I mean, I wouldn't call myself like righteous, but I'm just saying, I would say that the plants and the mushrooms have demanded a level of impeccability and demanded me to clean up my life, clean up my mind, my language, I mean, I don't drink anymore. You know, everything. Like I mean, if anything, the teachings of Jesus, which of course I'm still getting to know, and the situations I've been in, that's the teachings. These people are coming out loving themselves, loving others. Not everybody, but I mean, do you see that with people in church? Do you see that like that? There's no, you go to God, you go to Jesus, and then you have these great people. Like, give me a break. That's just not a true statement.
As Jesus said, he who has not sinned, may he cast the first stone. So
exactly.
And just to throw this in while we're also kind of mentioning and talking about it, I mean, I can also talk from this perspective that if it wasn't for me getting into psychedelics, in particular LSD and mushrooms, LSD, maybe we'll have a little bit of a conversation about that one, but particularly mushrooms tend to have pushed me down this path of like loving everybody, like this righteous path. And just to bring it up too, you know, you talk about Moses and the burning bush, as I brought up a little bit earlier, and looking it up, it seems like it doesn't necessarily state specifically what plant it was, but most believe that it was an acacia bush, which obviously has psychoactive properties to it because it links in with DMT. Or the other guess that a lot of Rastafarians believe is that it may have been a cannabis plant, which also goes into, again, another psychoactive plant. But here's where I wanted to kind of get into the differentiation here. Mushrooms, DMT, cannabis, all naturally happening things that don't have to be chemically altered by any means. People typically have these positive experiences with it where they push them down this path of love using these particular things that are something that's naturally here for us, getting into the component of it possibly being created by God himself. On the other flip side, you get into some of these other substances such as, you know, meth, crack, any of these things. And people talk about having these experiences where they talk with these demons, they talk to these evil things that tell them to do evil things. So look at the differentiation here. One of them is this synthesized produced drug that isn't something that naturally grows. It's something that you have to do this chemical compound to get to a point where this thing reacts. And then once you get to that point, those are the things that tend to push people into doing these evil things. But these plants that are naturally here push people down this righteous path. Clearly, maybe that's where the manipulation comes in with the whole fallen angel concept, that everybody wants to throw plants and that whole facade under, you know, it must be some type of Nephilim or fallen angel knowledge. But if it's, again, something that's naturally here, they didn't do anything to alter it. It was something that was naturally here. All these drugs that were produced that people had to figure out this chemical process to get to it may have been the knowledge that they're speaking of, that they told them they needed to mix this with this to synthesize this. And that could possibly be the experiences that people are having is because it was synthesized by these disembodied fallen angel, whatever you want to refer to them as, type beings.
The Nephilim.
The Nephilim.
Well, the thing is that ayahuasca, and this is why I think that's why I wanted to talk about it, right? Because ayahuasca is a vine and a plant. So it isn't just naturally the two came together and this substance was created. And I didn't know that about DMT. Like, how is DMT, you know, from what I understood, people have to synthesize DMT. I know DMT is you know, when you take ayahuasca, it's like you experience the DMT in it, but
I'm more so referring to the fact that it's like a naturally produced chemical. Meaning
it's naturally produced.
Yeah, it's
naturally produced.
Yeah.
So with ayahuasca, it is two substances. And again, I'm only just beginning to study the biblical teachings. I think in the Old Testament, it said not to have roots, like not to mix roots and herbs, like roots and plants, right? There's something about that. That's very specific. That's like, do not mix the roots and the plants. That's like the Nephilim teachings, where it's kind of gets into the witchcraft, you know? So that's why I do understand where the concern around ayahuasca, because it's not like you do have to blend these things to make this substance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the thing is that you do go into an altered state, and it can be sketchy. And you go into an altered state in LSD, in psilocybin, you know, all these things can be sketchy. It is true. I guess my whole thing about it is what are the fruits? You know, like this, I really locked into this when my friend was talking about it. It's like, what are the fruits of the vine? Not everybody is going to go to Jesus. Sorry. Like, I would never have gone to Jesus had it not been for David Icke and like all that stuff I took in. Like, I would never have done that. That was the last thing on my list, you know, to go to. I personally am very affected by people's voice and tone. And there is a drone-like sound to most Christians. They have a tone, they have a sound, they have a way they talk, and it is very offensive to me. It feels like a cult. I'm trying to get out of these cults. You know, we were born into one. I'm trying to get out. I'm not trying to insert myself in another one. So this idea that you know, people, if they just go to Jesus or they go to God or something like that, that's gonna save them. It's just not for everybody. When you've never grown up in that, and the cult of the Christians are around you and they have that tone and they sound a certain way, like that feels creepy to me. And then, you know, you're desperate, you have trauma, you have, you know, addiction, all these different things, like, the idea of, and then it's not like I'm going to go to the medical industry. I've questioned that my whole life, or not my whole life, but like all question marks there. Like, I don't trust the medical industry. I'm not trusting like psychiatrists. So this idea that there's something else that could possibly, and that works for people and that changes their life. And it's not a human, and it's not human created. That is a portal people are interested in. They've been corrupted by humans. They've been harmed by humans. They've been, you know, it's like this idea that there's a plant or a mushroom or a, you know, a cannabis, like these things that basically all come from nature could help you. That is a very appealing path. And the thing is that what's really hard, again, you know, it's kind of me pushing up specifically in the realms of the Christian teachers, because they keep, you know, saying these broad statements, and it's just very challenging when none of those things feel like options. You don't have the hospitals, you don't have the religions, you don't have the church. Like, nothing feels like an option. So these plants that came from God's creation come in to feel like an option. It's like, I don't think it's a ridiculous thing that humans are interested in it. You know what I mean?
Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave. I mean, it's, at least with cannabis, I mean, it's a defining part of the Rastafarian tradition, which of course is like an off-split of Christianity. But, you know, even as they say in Matthew, every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. So that being said, you know, connecting in with the whole thing where you were saying with the roots and everything, you know, mushrooms, cannabis, for example, just to specifically talk about those two, I mean, they are strictly just something that bears fruit, and it's not something that you're mixing with another root, anything like that. So under that explanation that it does bear good fruit, wouldn't that be another thing that might even, again, push you towards the path of God? Maybe that's the intention in the first place. And even talking about the grand design of everything, I mean, humans naturally have cannabinoid receptors in the brain. If God didn't intend for you to use cannabis, you know, obviously don't overuse it, because just like anything, everything can be overused, but there must be some natural component and purpose to us having an interaction with it. Otherwise, why would we even have those receptors in the first place?
Same with Amanita muscaria. We have muscimol receptors, and muscimol is one of the main constituent components of Amanita muscaria. So yes, exactly. So I feel that it's really important to state that even though specifically I am sort of repping ayahuasca, I do work with mushrooms as well. I am repping ayahuasca because that's been one of the main plants I've worked with. It's not a root, it's a vine and it's a plant. But the point is that what I see coming out of it is not fake angelic, fake angels, fake God. Like, I'm not seeing these sort of blanket statements people say about it. I'm seeing something that's very challenging. It's very confrontational. In my own personal life, I've been able to transform. I mean, if you would have seen my relationship with my dad, like, my dad is very conservative. He trusts me now. You know? It's like, he trusts me on a level he never would have trusted me. We are actually close, you know. I even bring up that I do this work because I said, that's how you and I can communicate. And it's, you know, it scares him, but I said, I'm not doing psychedelics to party. This has literally changed my life. I'm not haunted by the sexual abuse anymore. You know, I don't drink anymore. I'm more sober than I've ever been in my entire life. I'm more grounded. It's really funny because the plants, and I say that when I say the, you know, ayahuasca and the mushrooms, I mean, they've told me I need to get my bookkeeping in order. They've, you know, I've been directed to mend friendships, have communications with my mom. I mean, it is so much about the life-giving way. You know, one of the words that I use all the time is the life-giving matrix. It's like, there's the parallels of what I see coming out of medicine space, psychedelic medicine space, and the parallels of what Jesus teaches. Honestly, I just don't see a difference. Is there occasionally a bad egg? Yes. It's so rare. I really have been thinking about this so much since I started to listen to all these teachers and interviews. And I thought, you know, out of all the years, not only have I been transformed in ways that are shocking. I mean, you know, my ego was out of control, like everything, just name it, you know, just a mess, you know what I mean? And it's like, man, just cleaned up, you know, I can enjoy life. I have compassion. I have not fake gratitude. I have actual gratitude. I am not, you know, entitled like I used to be, just so consumptive, so greedy, like very, like I said, very egotistical, just so many things, you know, and I have just been completely transformed. And also, again, these things about like connecting to the demonic realms. I mean, there is things that happen, you know, occasionally, yes, people do have a negative experience, but you know what? This is the thing is like, there was this show I recently was watching. It was called From. And I could not, and I mean, I hear more about this now. More people are talking about it. I am convinced that that show has frequency portals in it that program violent thoughts into people's consciousness, because that's what I experienced. I experienced a strange addiction to the show, which was like freaking me out. I felt like, wow, this is so violent. This is so gross. I want to keep watching it. And I could see all these really violent thoughts in my mind that weren't in the show. It was almost like some other kind of programming coming into my mind. And I thought, wow, if I didn't know what was happening, I might think that this is who I am, and I might act on these violent thoughts. You know, I don't have violent thoughts. It's not part of my personality, obviously. But I could see, I've been seeing, I feel like I'm being shown more and more the frequency programming in programs. We already know that, but I think it's getting really intense. I think it's getting
talk about true crime podcasts too. That's another one, because I know a lot of people that now contemplate like, oh, this is how I would murder somebody, and why is that so popular now? Because the devil works through deception.
Exactly, and it's going into our mind. It's making us feel something, and when we think something and we feel it, how do we create? That's part of how we create, right? So all this, I mean, you know, you see it, right? I mean, probably as a parent, you see it more. There's so much violent shows, series, movies. It's just like, and that's like millions and millions of dollars, you know, just Netflix, like all of it. It's just
sympathizing with the villain. That's a common trope that I've seen in a lot of shows, particularly kid shows, that you don't have this good and bad concept. It's like, oh, here's the good guy, here's the bad guy, but the bad guy, he has a reason for doing the bad things he does, and you need to understand his perspective on why he's bad in the first place. This is like a common trope with everything. It's, you know, trying to identify with the enemy, essentially.
Right. And so my experience is that everything is becoming portals. Yes, psychedelics for sure. It is a portal. You know, you still need to have agency. There's nobody I've worked with over the years that didn't say, you are still responsible for yourself. You still have agency. You have sovereignty. And, you know, there's support there. There's all kinds of things, but also, we are in charge of ourselves, you know, and I think this idea that psychedelics are the deception is it's not fair to put a blanket statement over that, because I don't know who I would be without them, to be quite honest. I mean, I did get sober from psychedelics, not ayahuasca, but from my psychedelic substance. I was able to stop drinking after that, you know? And I don't know who I would be. I don't know who a lot of these people would be if they didn't have this option. Maybe not ayahuasca, but cannabis. I mean, all of it. Amanita muscaria. I mean, I can't tell you how much feedback people have just working with a mushroom that comes from the ground in the forest, underneath trees, right? Talk about another thing. It's just naturally growing. Most people in this day and age are in an invisible prison, and that invisible prison is a mental prison and an emotional prison. I've only just recently got out, and I've been aware of all this stuff for a long time, you know, as have you. And these plants, these mushrooms, they are not the way, they are not a religion. Yes, there is a reverence to them. And, you know, there is a spiritual aspect to ayahuasca. Like, people will call the spirit of ayahuasca grandmother. They will call it, they give it's a female energy. And that's another reason why it's sketchy, right? There's this like, don't worship spirits, the spirits. But the thing is that this spirit, I feel like people are very thankful, including myself, but nobody's worshiping in that sense. I actually looked up worship before I got on this call because I was like, is it a religion? Are people worshiping? Yes, they do revere it. And there is something where you feel, like, oh, I'm so thankful for this medicine. I mean, it's mostly just called a medicine. I'm so thankful for this medicine. Thank you, grandmother. Thank you, spirit of ayahuasca. Thank you, mushrooms. Thank you. Like, there is a spiritual component. I also think, including cannabis, these plants, these mushrooms, I do think they have an agenda. I don't think it's to deceive us. I don't think it's to put us into contact with demons or fake fallen angels or the reptilians. I think that their agenda is to, from what I've seen in all my years and working with people and myself, is to return people to love. That's all I see. That's all I see is people returning to love, returning to loving themselves, returning to loving the earth, remembering there is an earth. There is a term in Shipibo, which is the tradition that I work with. The ayahuasca tradition is the Shipibo Kanibo. And there's a term, and it's life-giving good. There's the word. It's I don't know why I'm forgetting right now, but basically the translation is life-giving good. It's about returning to the life-giving matrix, right? In the biblical teachings, because that's essentially what started me reaching out to you and reaching out to these other people I reached out to. It's about heaven on earth. Kingdom of heaven was within, bringing this heavenly realm to earth. Do I believe that that's a true statement or not? I don't know. I'm running an experiment. I'm running an experiment, connecting to Yeshua, connecting to God, connecting to this life-giving matrix. I feel that the plants and the entheogens have supported bringing me into this. Do they awaken everybody to everything? No, they don't. Do they awaken you to your, like, if everything is a seed that has a design and a blueprint, sunflower grows into a sunflower. Does it treat us similarly? Like, you came here, you have this little seed that when it's cleaned and cleared off and it has space to come forth, when it's loved and connected to creator and the natural world, creator's creation, it feels good. People feel good. They want to live. They want to not only live, they want to take care. They realize maybe they don't, I say invisible prison all the time. They realize they've been living something that was not their beliefs. That was not who they were. Of course, we could go deep into it, right? Who is it? It's the cult. I mean, there's all this programming that we call our society, but people start to realize, oh, I don't want to, drink or do drugs or do my, have intimacy in that particular way anymore. I don't want to talk about people. I don't want to think harmful thoughts. Like, I want to treat myself better. I want to eat better. I'm going to start to look at the food I'm putting in my body. I can tell you that almost everybody I know that's been working with the plants for a long time, people do not, it's very rare that there is harsh things said about each other. It's like their judgment is very, like, you do not want to judge. You start to get that sympathy, you start to get your empathic innate design back. These things, they're not even righteous because they're part of our design to be empathic, so you do no harm. our gut lining is very thin so that we have this experience with animals, nature, other humans. We feel their feelings so we don't harm, right? That's the design. That's the design of our human body, of our human instrument. And so the thing is that the entheogens, in my experience, from my witnessing, bring us back into our design as creator beings. They give us a reason to love it and not just give it all over to Chat GPT and, whatever, the Neuralinks. Like, it makes you value yourself. It makes you value your individuality, your uniqueness, what makes you special as a human being, as a human creator being. There's something special about that. And that's what I see with the entheogens. Is there portals? Yes. And there's portals in Spotify, Apple, Netflix, Prime, media, medicine. Another thing that somebody was commenting on, oh, well, the medicine, you have to keep drinking the medicine. It's like, I don't know about you, Shayn, but is there anything you've ever seen where you just take something once and then you're well?
No, I mean, honestly, no. And Inquiries About Reality will return after this quick commercial break. And we are back, so let's hop right in. But mushrooms, if you want to bring that one up in particular, a lot of the time, I mean, that's one of those few things that people may only have one experience and they're totally okay with it.
That's
or
true.
You take a couple of experiences with it and it tells you, like, you don't need any more. I mean,
You're
that's
good.
kind of where I was. I was doing this stuff regularly until I got to a certain point when all of a sudden it's just, you're done. This is all you needed. And I haven't really had an interest to do it since. But that being said, of course, I still kind of have, of course, have some for when it does speak to me again and wants me to do this type of stuff. But, it gets you to a point where it's like you don't need it anymore. And I mean, that's part of the aspect of, why there could be possible control and deception through this. And I mean, we were talking about it a little bit earlier before we started the show about, what the cannabis industry and everything has turned into. And if all of this is true and it is, a possible connection with God, maybe that might be the intention on why all this legalization is starting to happen with this stuff. It isn't necessarily for the purposes that we think it is, but again, people coming from the inside of it, we're seeing the degradation of this plant. We're seeing it get destroyed from the inside out. So if you have, this gift, and what's the best way to completely destroy it? You got to, to deceive people, you got to destroy it and make it seem like it's something completely different than what it is. And just to continue on with the thought, the next one that it seems to kind of be in the line is mushrooms, where they're starting to decriminalize them in certain areas. And in the process of that, I've already heard of a few different ways that they're trying to figure out how to synthetically synthesize psilocybin, and it's not actually coming from the mushroom anymore. So getting into this whole idea of deception, legalization, everybody thinks that, we're just going to throw it at people like medicine. Maybe the whole intention is that they're trying to take the spirituality out of the plant because they don't want you to have this direct connection possibly with God. And maybe the whole aspect behind it is the fact that everybody was kind of weary about it because you do get this instant aspect of trials and tribulations when you deal with this. And they know that not everybody is spiritually ready for this. So rather than saying, it might be for some, it may not be for others, they kind of just put this thing on it like, just don't do it. It's not meant for you. But like I said, on the flip side, it might just be because it's almost like getting thrown directly into trials and tribulations, like if you get thrown into it, you can either go one of two ways. You can fall down the righteous path, or you can fall down the path of, I had this bad trip, and you end up going down this complete spiral through life. So, rather than having that possibly happen to somebody, they want you to do this kind of step by step to get to that point rather than just getting thrown in right away. But on the flip side, some people do better if they just get casted into the waters and they have to try to keep their head above and stay afloat, because that ends up pushing them down the correct path. Like, it's kind of a weird thing to think about, that not everything is intended for everybody. And getting into even this aspect about like knowledge, one thing that I've talked about a handful of times on the show is everybody thinks that there's this aspect of forbidden knowledge, and it may not necessarily be that. It may just be a matter of you acquire more knowledge as you grow, the same way as you would with children, that you don't give them the full scape of everything going on because they're a child. You teach them things step by step. God could have perceived this that particular way, that, we may have had these set of rules and everything in the beginning, but as society has gotten older and we've acquired more of an understanding of things around us, we are granted more knowledge. But a lot of people like to view it as this is the cutoff with knowledge, not realizing that, again, we are growing, and just like a child, eventually you will give them more knowledge as you think that they are mature enough to be able to handle this knowledge.
Well, what I think is interesting is that, well, for one, okay. So one thing is that there's the plants. I mean, I've seen 75-year-old woman, old Indian people, doctors work with ayahuasca. And like, the thing is, people you would think that are not ready, this plant, just in the same way I think everything in the natural world, this plant works with people in the way that it works with them. I just see it over and over again. I think, oh, that person's kind of square or something. I don't know a better word to say it. Like, oh, it's going to be too much for them. And the thing that I find fascinating is it so rarely is. It's always meeting people where they're, I don't want to say always, but I'm so surprised at how the plants, the mushrooms work with people where they're at. And I love that you brought up the mushrooms sort of giving you what you need and then you're done. And you may not need it ever again. I mean, I've seen that with ayahuasca too. It's not a religion. Psychedelics are not a religion. There's no one to really say that you're ready or you're not. I think actually the way that these entheogens work with people is at that level. They're going to work with you where you're at. I mean, have you seen people spiral out after having bad trips? I mean, occasionally it happens, but I find that more rare in all my years. I really don't see that. I mean, even people that have bad trips, occasionally it does happen. They're super sensitive. They don't do it again, but they're also having a daily bad trip in life.
I mean, that's usually what it comes down to, though, is that it's also, I guess, like partially just your mindset going into it, that going back into like the intention idea that, if you think you're going to have this traumatic experience and you can't handle it, then you're going to already cast doubt on yourself and, you're not going to be able to handle it. It's kind of going back even to throw in another biblical reference with this. I mean, you have to have faith in what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to be cast to the waters. I mean, even to bring up a message from the Bible talking about Peter, when he saw Jesus in the water and he was told to step out in the water, the second he doubted that, he fell into the waters and Jesus asked him why he doubted him. If you doubt yourself and you doubt these things, then they're going to throw you into a spiral to test your faith. And that may be the case with a lot of these things, is that the people that go in as doubters end up having these experiences where they truly get tested to their faith.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
which is the hard part, because like I said, that's like the trials, because not everybody can handle that, I guess, but you never know unless you're there. That's kind of the hard part.
I think I keep going back to originally why I reached out to you, which is that because I keep hearing these statements, these broad statements, like, about psychedelics, about people talking about them as demonic, as the works of the fallen angel, all of these kind of things. It's like, no matter what in life, you are going to have trials and tribulations. If you get into a spiritual path, you're going to have that. If you're actually transforming by it, I feel that the Lord works in mysterious ways. And that was one of the things I said in my email to you. Can we have a different conversation in relation to, again, because I'm running this experiment, I did ask to be saved, actually, because I felt like I needed some protection about the level of deceit coming in. And so that has put me on the path of learning, and in relationship, beginning a relationship with Yeshua, and taking in biblical information through these teachers, feeling that it is super true and resonant for the most part. And I keep getting this shock every time there's a dismissal of the entheogenic realm, when I'm like, these plants and mushrooms, I think, are working with God. And that's really something I want to say very directly. Is it for everybody to get into them? No. But is it for everybody to get into, it's like, even if you go to a church, you're going to have to test the fruits or whatever they say. You're going to have to test the vine, like if I'm not going to the churches in town, like I already know that that's not my people, right? Like I am not resonating with that particular vibration. You have to do that in anything, but to make these blanket statements that these entheogens are portals to Satan and the demonic realms is wrong. It's wrong. It has literally taught me how to understand the Bible. It has supported me in allowing myself to be open to Yeshua, to listening to Christians, to be honest, to listening to all kinds of people and all kinds of things. It's very challenging. It's not just like you go in and you get all this fake bliss and there's angels and all these beautiful things. It's very hard. It's actually extremely challenging. The things you have to face about yourself and the truths and the harms you've done, and talk about walking through the valley of the shadow. Like, you have to confront all the things. If you are, and people look at them and don't confront them, which they do in life in general. But these entheogens, in my experience and from what I've witnessed year after year, time after time, is that there is a working in conjunction with God and Jesus and the life-giving matrix, God's creation, if you believe that, which I'm interested in believing that because it feels really good, and what we are as human beings, as I said. And so I just can't, I have to push back on these blanket statements because it's just not true. And again, when I look at the people coming out of sessions time and time again, they're walking in, they are holding the characteristics of the qualities, many of the qualities that Jesus talks about.
I could definitely second that from my own experiences, being that, like I said, I was pushed away from a lot of these views. And if it wasn't, and obviously went down my own dark path, such as, dealing with my own trauma, going into alcoholism, all of that stuff. And if it wasn't for the experiences with these things, just like you'd mentioned, I would have never gotten out of that hole. I would have never realized the errors of my ways. I would have never started treating people better around me. And I wouldn't have opened up to the possibility of spirituality. And because of that being open, and that, I guess you could say, the void where nothing quite felt like it was kind of hitting the spot with it, it inevitably pushed me down this path too, like I mentioned, just same as you. So just another person that I could say that I can vouch for the fact that if it wasn't for psychedelics, I don't think it would have pushed me down the path to following the teachings of Jesus, for example. So I feel like there's a lot more people out there. It's just a conversation not a lot of people are having, because when it comes to the church and psychedelics, like you mentioned, people try to keep these things separate because a lot of the church view these as blasphemous things. But again, like you mentioned, like, how can they possibly be blasphemous if they push you down the path of this teaching? It doesn't logically make any sense. The fruits that are bearing are good.
They're good. And the other thing too is that I find it unfortunate that the people that get interviewed, and this is also where I feel that this, again, because I'm speaking on behalf of, these teachers, the Christian teachers, rebranded Christian teachers we're talking about, that the people they interview had this terrible ayahuasca experience, met Satan, called Jesus. Jesus came and saved them. And now they're reformed and they've shunned ayahuasca or whatever, psychedelics. And that's why I was really thankful that we could just have this conversation, because I've never met one of those people. And as I'm getting closer in my relationship with Yeshua, I'm saying, like, what do you, like, show me what you think of this? Like, what is this realm? Should I leave? Should I not be here? And it's like, I'm still participating. It's not this weird thing. Also, like people perceive it. This is another thing I want to clear up. People perceive it like you have to keep going and getting a cup, and then you're worshiping this spirit. It's like, this plant that does have a feminine component and a spirit, it does have a spirit. I've never seen it, but you get that experience. It is not trying to get you to worship it. It is trying to get you to worship life and love yourself and love others, love life and love nature. If there's anything, it does, I find that it could kind of trick you into doing this really hard work that you need to do, that you're avoiding, and it will help you reconcile these things, and then it will get you out into the world. You can't get addicted to it because it makes you feel bad. It makes you nauseous. It has its own sort of mechanism, like psilocybin, like Amanita muscaria, where if you start to abuse it, it's not like tobacco. Like, if you start to abuse it, it's going to feel bad. It makes you feel nauseous. It's going to start to give you a feedback loop until you change your ways. Like, it doesn't feel good. It's not a drug you're going to get high on for a good time. Like, yes, there can be aspects of that for sure. It is very challenging. The terrain of entheogens, when utilized as these ambassadors, I think, of God and of the life-giving matrix, they are very challenging. They are not easy. They are not fun. Nobody's partying at these ceremonies. Yeah, you can have a good time sometimes when you realize what you've gone through and that you're on the other side, like, whew, thank God. But it's not a party. It's not easy access to higher dimensions. Like, you do have to work for it. And this goes for anything. Like, you're not just going and purging and getting higher access. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't.
It makes you grateful, which is the teaching in the first place.
It makes you grateful.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show.
So, I mean, this is essentially what I was hoping to share and also to explore, because to be honest, Shayn, like, I did expect to be told to stop sitting with the plants. I expected that because I'm like, is this bad? Is this is this dark? Is this evil? And I have just continued since coming into relationship with, the creator Trinity, God, Jesus, whatever, Holy Spirit, like the crew. Ever since hanging out with the crew, I have not been told to leave. I've been shown more I've been shown more of actually what is coming out of it, and it's incredibly beautiful, and I'm really thankful a lot of people have access to it, because it's still exotic, especially ayahuasca. A lot of it's exotic, and it's illegal, right? It's underground. So unfortunately, especially like Amanita muscaria, it's like, man, it grows in the forest. There's a woman I know, horribly abused as a child, sexually abused, tried all kinds of entheogens. Nothing's working. She's working with Amanita muscaria, and it's like the first time she's having joy in her life. It doesn't make you high. It is an entheogen. And they're trying to make it illegal because it's healing people. They don't have to take a bunch of pharmaceuticals. It's free. If you're in the woods, buy a mushroom. Same with psilocybin, right? One of my ex-boyfriends had to go to prison. He was, suicidal, depressed, found a patch of psilocybin, was able to heal himself, got free of, the suicidal, the mental, impairments, the suffering, thriving now. He had to go to prison because he picked some mushrooms on natural land that healed him. He had to go to prison for a short amount of time, but he was jailed for that. That's insane. These things heal people. And for them, and they continue to be illegal. That's the thing that should be, obviously. We're preaching to the choirs, right? But
that's part of the deception, of course, is they got to learn how to control it before they're able to do that, which, again, going into the whole cannabis thing, they're completely destroying the plant and what it ever represented in the first place, which is why it's slowly becoming legalized. A matter of it being legalized in states before it ends up going national. They got to destroy it before they can nationally just let everybody have it unleashed. So again, going into the whole deception of things, if there is something that brings you that close to God, of course they're going to do whatever they can to try to push people away from that and away from that mentality. And even just, again, if they're able to push the plants into a point of being genetically modified to the point where they're so potent that they don't react the way that they're supposed to, and they don't make people feel creative anymore, they rather just make people feel lazy. Again, pushing back into the deception of everybody being like, oh, this is the thing, but it's only safe if you get it from me, which I have my own genetically modified aspects to it. So it's not what you think it is in the first place. Just broader scheme of the deception. There has to be a reason behind it, like that's at least the two and two that I put together in my mind. Like, whenever I see something that has been so shunned upon for so long, and then all of a sudden there's this instant push, they're like, yeah, it's okay now. But in the same time that push is happening, there is continuous modification to it. That's the only way that I can direct my mind towards it, is that there's an intentional deception with it.
And I think you really hit it on this extracting because we are matter and we are spirit. The plants, the mushrooms, the kingdoms, the trees, the natural world, there is matter, and for those of us who've experienced it. And I think there was a time when our instrument was not so adulterated that we communed with the consciousness and the spiritual aspects of everything around us, right? And yeah, I think that you are correct that there is this removal of the spirit, by the modification, getting it so far from what it originally was that it no longer, or maybe it even has some other kind of spirit, who knows? But the spirit of the plant is removed, or it is also subjugated. It becomes suppressed, and and it's. But then of course we have the spirit of alcohol that opens up all kinds of portals, and the spirit attached to alcohol is actually a demonic one. I would say that the spirit of alcohol is worshipped, is more dangerous than any entheogen, and most people are not prepared or have, people are not prepared to work with the spirit of alcohol. And it is a dangerous one. And it is completely legal. It's normalized. It's in movies. It's in everything. And it is a spirit that is worshipped truly. People can't even imagine their life without it. I was one of those people. I'm sure you were too. And it's more dangerous than anything that we've ever talked about. And it is not helping people come closer to God. And it is 1,000,000% aligned with deceit. I mean, I worked in the wine business. There's some amazing wine out there. And I'm not saying all alcohol is bad, but it's a portal. Give me a break. That's why you have a good time. It's a portal to a spiritual dimension. Like, it is a thing that creates a portal.
Hey, false idols will rise you up, but you'll be humbled before God. So, I mean, that could definitely play into the role of alcohol versus, psychedelics, for example.
So I guess just why do you think that it's, in these realms with these rebranded Christians, why is it so black and white? Like, it's either a portal to the demonic realm or, it's like, it's either this or that. There's no you and I in this conversation where we're actually getting closer to these things that people would refer to as the realms of Christianity or whatever via our relationship with the plants and the mushrooms. Like, where is our part in that as it's deepening our spiritual union?
I mean, I think it's a component of, especially with everything going on in society, people are really starting to understand the deception that's within everything. So as we were mentioning earlier with this new age, like Christian movement, I don't want to call it new age Christian movement, but the rogue Christian movement, whatever you want to call it, I think it's a matter of people are trying to like rediscover the true meanings of things. So while they're in the process of trying to rediscover the true meanings of things, they're trying to look at things as black and white as possible, that it's either good or bad, because they still haven't quite found the middle ground in this like new translation. And I mean, I definitely feel like you're seeing a lot of this, that a lot of these people that are really diving back into this stuff, they're not using the King James or anything like that. They're using the ones that are the direct translations from the Dead Sea Scrolls, or from Greek into English, or from Hebrew into English. So I don't even necessarily think that it's not that there's a place for this discussion. It's just that we're in a time where people are trying to refigure it out without the corruption aspect. And once we kind of get a new establishment, then we can kind of start branching into these things. But it's almost like the church currently is trying to dive into the aspect of truly understanding the whole concept of the fallen angels, the Nephilim, the giants. So first they're trying to identify the enemy. And then after the enemy has been identified, now we can start breaking down the other components of it. So I think everybody is just so fixated on trying to re-understand this stuff that it just hasn't entered the conversation yet. It's not that it won't, it's just that it hasn't yet, because we're still trying to reestablish the framework currently.
That makes sense. I love that. I feel like I needed to hear that.
Hey, everything happens for a reason.
I'm in a discovery too, and because I'm not being ejected out of this world, and because how much it keeps changing me and adulting me too, like in many ways. It's like the plants are like, Valentine, you've got to get your freaking money in order, dude. Like, you've got to get this. You've got to shape this up. You've got to clean, it's like, and then I'm like, now I'm working with this, the creator Trinity. And it's like, I just can't feel that it's this negative, demonic, fallen angel technology. Like, it's just not through my lens. But now that you're saying this, and so I'm in an exploration. That was one of the things I asked you, like, I'm curious if we can have a different conversation. Maybe something will come of it, some that I hadn't thought about, and that makes sense to me. It's like because I didn't grow up in any of this, and it's resonating very intensely with me. Like, I love it, and it's deepening me on all kinds of levels, the biblical teachings that are coming in on a very spiritual level, like on a very multidimensional level. I'm learning. I can understand why everything has to be put into question before you start to be open to something else.
And it's kind of funny that all of this fell when it did, because we actually talked about this, setting up this episode and having this conversation a couple months ago. And it wasn't until relatively recently that I kind of started falling back down this path. I've kind of been skirting the line around it, talking about it on the show forever, but it hasn't been until somewhat recently that I've really started to really fall down this path. So again, things happening for a reason, things lining up for a reason. You know, God works in mysterious ways. So the time that this conversation fell, maybe hopefully can be the start of when people possibly start talking about this type of stuff, because, you know, it seems like a lot of people are starting to almost get this divine calling where they're really starting to try to understand these components of things that, you know, typically aren't talked about very often. So, you know, with this rediscovery, hopefully we can, again, start to reestablish a new understanding of this. And even within the process of this, I mean, I was talking to Seth Vanderbrook, a guest who's popped on a few times on the show, because he's been talking about this whole thing with me a bit. And even within the Bible, there's a lot of certain parts that are skipped over purposefully when you're speaking about it from like a church perspective, like start getting into the Solomon aspect of things or the mystical aspect of things. And it is clearly part of the Bible. It's an important component of it. So, you know, it's a matter of taking the right group of people to really help to rediscover it. And I think it's one of those things that it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's not going to be something that happens within a generation or anything like that. But that being said, there has to be some people that start chipping away at the wall to make it so that this is a conversation that starts to get talked about. So, you know, all it takes is one bird chirping into another bird's ear to make it so that all the birds will eventually start chirping. So, you know, maybe this could be a starting point. Maybe this could be a point where people start bringing this into the conversation. But
I do want to get out of the psychedelic. Like there's kind of almost these little sects within psychedelia, and, you know, there's styles and languages and cultures. And it's, you know, I want to walk a different path out of it, as the people I know do as well. You know, it's like, we're not trying to be witches or anything. Like we're actually, I think I'm mostly a mystic I'm a mystic on a spiritual path. And these things have just bringing me closer and deeper on this path. And I think that that's essentially what this conversation is. It's not a conversation about psychedelic medicines. It's something different. It's part of God's creation that we're working with and discovering that it's bringing us closer, at least myself, you, and those I witness all the time, bringing us closer into a matrix. It feels like the matrix of the life-giving one, potentially one that maybe creator created, because it feels better and better when you're in it. And that's a different conversation.
Say, and even bringing up the different mystic aspects of the Bible, I think that was the conversation that I was trying to get to a bit earlier. With the rediscovery of a lot of this stuff, I feel like some of the more mystical components of the Bible are going to start coming out. And maybe that's part of the intention, is that these conversations need to be had for the sake of rediscovery, because, a lot of people tend to pass over and forget that David used to interpret dreams. Daniel used to interpret dreams. So there's been a plethora of different mystics through the Bible, and it's just been forgotten through time as everything's kind of passed on and those parts of the story start getting skipped over. But, some of the most prolific people in the Bible were mystics, and were using these natural things in order to communicate with God. And maybe later on we'll realize that part of the missing component was the fact that we lost this connection, and it does need to be rediscovered with this redefining of the new Christianity, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And we are back to the show. Let's hop right in. I guess kind of starting to wrap up towards the end, and I would definitely love to dive back into another conversation with you because I feel like there's still a million different directions we could go on.
Much.
And not to mention, both of us are on a path of rediscovery, so I feel like, we could probably go 2 weeks out from now and we probably have a whole new different thing to talk about. But I always like to end the show on somewhat of a high note. So if there was any words of wisdom that you might want to bestow on the listeners today, other than what you've been talking about the whole show, what might it be?
Something I tell myself all the time is to run experiments, to be fearless in running experiments with your imagination, with your mind, with your emotions. Be fearless in working with this interface that we have with God and our creatorship. Be fearless, because it actually can be quite scary to really use your imagination, trust it, and see how it works. And so, yeah, be unafraid.
Hey, as they say in the Bible, beloved, but do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, for many false prophets have gone out into the world. So that being said, the only way to be able to know for sure is if we test these things. So, they might be a product of God, which tends to be what, a lot of people are leaning towards that have had these experiences. So, if the fruits bear good, then clearly they must be something good.
Mm-hmm. And when I say imagination, I mean sober. I'm not even talking about working with plants. I'm just letting ourselves imagine in an expanded, great way, and testing too. So that's it.
Hey, that's free will at the root of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if anybody else wanted to come and follow you, check out any of the stuff that you're putting out as far as content and everything goes, or even maybe share some of their own experiences with you with working with plants and finding maybe this connection to, and maybe even be down the same path as you, where might people be able to contact you and come and find you on the internet?
I am on Instagram. It's my name, Valentine Lovecraft Falcon. And my husband and I also have a business called Born Free Natural Mystic. So you can reach out to us there. And yeah, those are and I have a link tree on all of it. So it's all there, like you. I have a link tree on my Instagram. So
super quick and easy. And I'll make sure that I put the link tree down in the show description so everybody can find all your stuff super easy. And I appreciate you making the time to come on today. I appreciate you contacting me in the first place to spark up this conversation, because it's a conversation that has kind of been on the back burner, but I never thought I'd actually have. So I appreciate the fact that you came to me when you did to have the conversation, and that it fell when it did, because I feel like if we would have done this conversation a month sooner, it wouldn't have gone in the direction it did. So again, just thank you for contacting me, and thanks for having this conversation. And hopefully it speaks to a lot of people out there that feel like this has been an experience they've had that they may not be able to share with people. There are other people out there who have had these experiences and been pushed down this path. And, if it leads to a virtuous path, then it must be okay.
Yes. Thank you too. I feel the same.
If anyone would like to get a hold of me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofallrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the two that I'm the most active on. Or you guys can also get a hold of me through the submission form, which is up at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys get a hold of me is through calling or texting the Bizarre Reality Hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. And you guys can call or text that 24/7. And every single thing that I mentioned is available down in the show description and off of the link tree, which is also available down in that show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show's connected some dots in your own reality. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality.